Cricket Life Stories with me, Neel Khagram. Today we're joined by Simon Hughes. Simon, how's things going?
Been interesting, Neil, over the last year, covering cricket from home rather than from the ground. But it's all right. It teaches you new skills, and as long as we're getting the message across and getting lots of good, interesting content out there, as you can see, I've sort of redesigned one of my rooms to make it look a bit kind of crickety, and a few talking points. But generally, lots going on actually, especially in the sort of digital space. It's great to see cricket back on terrestrial TV, so I've been doing a bit of work on that. Just generally selling the message of cricket being the great game.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So let's take it all the way back with yourself. Talk us through how you got into the sport, how the interest sparked, and your earliest memories.
The earliest memory of cricket was playing with my dad in the back garden, and we were just mucking around playing football and a bit of cricket, a bit of tennis on a Saturday afternoon when I was about 9. And yeah, we'd watched a bit of cricket on telly and all that, but I hadn't kind of taken it too seriously. And there was this screaming sound coming from up the road on a Saturday afternoon. And it sounded like someone being strangled, this sort of like this. So we thought that's a bit weird. And then it happened again about 10 minutes later, a few times. And it did sound like someone being strangled. But anyway, we thought, well, we better go and see what this is. It sounds like some kind of event. So we went up the road to the local cricket club, which we'd never really been to before. And there was a match on, obviously. And there was a big ginger-haired fast bowler bowling and hitting people on the pads and screaming for LBW. And that was the noise we'd heard. And I don't know, we rather liked the ground. It was in Ealing, and it's the Ealing Cricket Club, which is a lovely traditional cricket ground with an old pavilion and, a kind of little ladies pavilion. And it's just a nice setting. And we sort of got into it and we watched it a bit. And then we went up the following week and the same. And so that sort of sparked my interest. And then my dad said, well, why don't we join? There's obviously some Colts playing. And we inquired and they said, no, they don't take Colts till they're 12. So that was a bit of a shame. But what happened is after that is the next year we went up and I said I was 12, even though I was actually only about 10. And they let me join. And it was the beginning of a lifelong association with the club, both for me and my dad, who became a coach and was then associated with the club for 40 years, coaching many quite well-known cricketers, as well as lots of club players and people, young players and all that. So that was how it started.
Did you take to the art of fast bowling, swing bowling easily? Or was it something as a youth you had to work on a lot, hone your skills, a lot of drilling? Do you remember?
Actually, I don't remember that much. All I do remember is that I liked the art of trying to bowl fast. I had some natural ability. I obviously had something called fast twitch fibers, which is the quick contractions of various muscles, which enables people to run fast, bowl fast, throw fast. And I found I had some ability. I copied, the heroes around that time. I suppose the early 70s, the West Indies with some pretty good bowlers. There was Bob Willis had just started his career. John Snow I really liked. Some names from the real distant past. And then I saw Ian Botham when I was about 15 as well, and really liked him. So, those were my sort of formative influences. And I tried to bowl fast and I had quite a bit of success.
So as you mentioned there, fast twitch. Do you think fast bowling, part of it, a lot of it is to do with, natural genetics as well? Something that you're kind of blessed with?
I think a lot of it is. I think you can make yourself faster, and obviously now there are more and more drills and there's more and more understanding about what makes a bowler bowl fast. In those days, there was very little coaching; it was pretty much trial and error. But I think there is you start with a natural ingredient which is enabling you to bowl fast. And there are some people, like my son, for instance, one of my sons, the oldest one, tries really hard to bowl fast, but it just doesn't come out fast. Whereas ironically, my daughter, who is a talented cricketer, she can bowl fast just naturally. So you have the natural raw material, but then obviously you can enhance that to certain levels.
And then how did Middlesex spot your talents? I know you came through the youth system. Did you go for early trials? Who do you remember the first person, the first coach that kind of said, "Look, you've got
I started
talent"?
going to sessions at Lord's when I was probably 11. And they used to have Easter coaching classes in the nursery ground, what they called under the arbours. There was old kind of car parking space, which is concrete, and they used to run sort of junior classes there at Easter. And I met a couple of sort of young-ish Middlesex players who were doing the coaching. I then got into the Middlesex under 12s. Well, I got into the Middlesex under 13s, I think, and played a couple of games for them. And there was a progression. And then actually, when I was 15, I didn't get picked and kind of got overlooked. Maybe I was a bit small at the time and hadn't really caught up with some of the other ones. But then when I got to 16, I did sprout up again and started bowling really quite fast, certainly at club and school level anyway. And so then I got picked for the Middlesex under 19s. And that was a lovely period, actually, because we used to go every year to Cambridge University to play a festival in August, a game every day. And I think that probably really lured me into wanting to be a professional, because there were beautiful grounds and it was a high standard and it was really well organised. So playing at the Cambridge Festival every year in August was a beautiful kind of pinnacle of the season for an under 19 player. And then I progressed into the seconds and did quite well for them, and then got a chance to play in the firsts.
Am I correct in saying, in between your schooling and your going to university, you also play some representative cricket in Sri Lanka? How was that again for in terms of your experience, in terms of the playing side of things, as well as like being a life experience as well at that age?
I'll tell you what, it was transformative, because I just finished school. I had a few months off before my going to university, so I took myself off to Sri Lanka, which was brought about because my best friend was a Sri Lankan from school, and so his family put me up and said you should come out and play in our club system. So I went out and played probably nearly 4 months of club cricket in Sri Lanka, and that was an incredible experience, very high standard, playing cricket literally every day. It was winter in England, but this was an opportunity to play every day, either practicing or playing matches, and so many lovely people. I kind of really grew from being quite a sort of lively junior bowler to being actually seriously quick for even adults to face. And also it really began my love affair with the subcontinent, with both Sri Lanka, which is still probably my favorite country, and to a lesser extent India. And the food and the culture and the people was so new and rewarding in so many ways that I'm sort of now a complete addict to anything to do with India or Sri Lanka. And it made me, actually a recognisably good cricketer who then went on to play professionally. So, it was a huge influence on my life, that.
And back home, you also touched on that you played in the second team for Middlesex. How did you find that environment? I've spoken to a lot of ex-professionals on this platform, and they've talked about sometimes it's a dog-eat-dog environment, given the competitive nature of it. People trying to get their contracts, first 11 players dropping down, almost trying to get form and trying to save their own careers. How did you find that experience playing second 11 cricket?
It was a real mixture of people who were clearly ambitious and wanted to progress, and those who were just happy being paid to lark about and play a bit of cricket because they had some talent. So it was funny. It wasn't easy. In a way, relationships between us was a bit strange, because I wanted to progress and I was quite ambitious, but you could easily be drawn in to the environment of players who just thought it was a lark, and they were just killing time before getting a job as a car salesman or something, just enjoying their youth, really. So it actually wasn't an easy environment to manage. It wasn't particularly professional, although, we are talking now 30, 40 years ago. So, there was an excuse in a way. It's much more professional now. But then it felt like a bit of an amateur kind of operation, which you got paid a little bit of money for. There wasn't much money. It was pittance, really. But some people thought, well, this is great. We're being paid to play for cricket and enjoy ourselves and get put up in a hotel and get a few expenses to get a couple of beers and some fish and chips at night. They were loving it. I never thought that was going to be my limit. I always wanted to progress. And unfortunately, I did.
And you played in the great era, the Great Middlesex era, that decade, 80s to 90s. Was it 4 championship wins, 3 one-day trophies? What, in your opinion, looking back, made up that great side? What ingredients made up such a winning machine that was Middlesex in that era?
Number one, talent. Some amazingly good players. At times, I was the only non-international playing in that 11. And there were international players, obviously English, but also West Indian. We had a South African one year. We had an Australian, Jeff Thompson, played for us. So there was an incredible elite level of performance. And I think the other thing was this sort of desire to win, which was begun under Mike Brearley, who took over as Middlesex captain before I started in the mid-70s and brought in a sort of winning mindset. And then after that, Mike Gatting took that on. So there was always a drive and ambition to be successful. And you think, wouldn't you, that all county players would think like that, but they didn't. And when I then went on, played for Durham later on, there were lots of players there who, again, were just enjoying it and didn't have that much ambition, really. They just had a bit of fun. But the Middlesex team were motivated by winning matches and titles. And I think also playing at Lord's had an influence because, it's the home of cricket and you don't want to let people down. You never know who might be watching. The governing body, the ECB, which was then called the TCCB, was based at Lord's. So there would always be quite influential people there, selectors, chairmen, etc. So you never knew who might be watching. So you felt you owed it to the environment to perform at your best. So it was very motivating.
So what was the standout moment when you look back for yourself personally during that period?
Sadly, we never won the championship or sealed the championship at Lord's. And when Middlesex won the championship in 2016, I think it was, that was the first time that they'd won the championship at home when they beat Yorkshire. Usually we won the championship away because the last few matches of the season nearly always were away from Lord's. So that was a slightly mixed experience, winning the championship. I did take the last 2 wickets of our championship winning run in 1990, which was a nice experience. And funnily enough, they were 2 wickets in 2 balls. I took the last 2 Sussex wickets in 2 balls to win the match and the title. So that was nice. From a kind of one-off, I think probably the Benson and Hedges final of 1986 was my best performance because it was a big game. It was a big day, centre point of the season, Benson and Hedges final, full crowd at Lord's, massive audience on TV. We were playing Kent, who were my childhood favourites. I supported Kent as a kid. I knew quite a lot of their players quite well. I had good friendships with them. And we had a very good side and we played an excellent tournament. And we got to the final and we were the favourites. But we had to bowl well to ensure we won. And there was quite a lot of pressure, obviously, on living up to our expectations. I came on to bowl after an opening burst from Wayne Daniel and Norman Cowans, both international cricketers. I could have been the weak link, but I actually bowled really well, took an early wicket, didn't let the pressure up, and then had to hold my nerve at the end when they needed about 12 to win off the last over in pouring rain. And my third ball was hit for 6, a bit like Jofra Archer in the World Cup final. But I managed to hold it together and we won. And so that was an exhilarating feeling.
And you also, during that period as well, you had time playing abroad. So in South Africa, was it Transvaal? And also you had some time, was it Grafton Cricket Club in Auckland? How was that again as an experience? And again, is that something that you'd recommend any modern day player now, obviously when restrictions are lifted, to go out, experience different conditions, to hone your skills in the professional game?
Massively, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, just the variety of conditions and situations that you find yourself in and different styles of play and all that. But also, I think responsibility. You're brought in to usually a club environment, sometimes a first-class environment, to produce the goods as the overseas pro, and that in itself brings a certain level of responsibility which you have to deliver on. So that's why it's a really good experience, and just sort of seeing another culture as well, and another way of playing the game. So I actually used cricket as a means to travel. I felt it was a great opportunity to see the world and play cricket at the same time. So I sort of did go to quite different places. I started in South Africa, as you mentioned, and played a season with Northern Transvaal in the Currie Cup, which is incredibly high standard, with the greats of the South African cricket playing still, people like Barry Richards and Mike Proctor and others. And then I started playing more club cricket around the world. I played in Durban. I then played in New Zealand twice. I went to Australia and played 2 seasons in different parts of Australia, one in Perth and one in Sydney. So, yeah, I mean, it was a really enriching experience, both from a playing point of view and also just from a traveling, travel broadens the mind. It definitely made me a more rounded person and a better cricketer.
In the back end of your career, how did the move to Durham come about? I know you went to university there, but then to end your playing career up north, perfect synergy?
Well, it was partly forced on me because I got injured in '91 and then I got released after that, partly because I hadn't had a very effective season. And that was kind of disappointing. But then Durham were announced as a new county, and I thought, well, there's a lot of sense in seeing if they're interested in me, because I was in Durham as a university student and loved the place, had a real sort of affinity with it. So yeah, I got talking to them. They were keen, and I also thought, as Ian Botham had been announced as one of their main signings, I thought it would be fascinating to play alongside the guy who I hero worshipped when I was a kid. And so it seemed like a really obvious move. And I loved every minute of it. It was fascinating and hugely enjoyable, not very successful, but a different sort of experience. And it very much laid the groundwork for Durham then becoming a real force in the game. And although they've had difficulties over the last few years financially, they still produce tremendous cricketers. The obvious one of which clearly is Ben Stokes, who I know actually came from New Zealand via Cumbria, but Durham very much kind of fine-tuned his skills, and they have an amazing record at producing England cricketers. So that was the start of it, and it was a great time to be involved.
And then when retirement came, were you ready to give up the game mentally? And also, I know you went into writing pretty much straight away. Is that something that you always had in the back of your mind, that that's the route you wanted to go down?
From the age of about 23, I was always writing. I found the game, endlessly fascinating. In fact, it goes back even before that to when I was at school, and I used to write reports of school matches and then read them out in assembly. So, it's always been there, I think. And when I was in the mid-20s, I started writing columns. when I got to mid-30s or early 30s, and I was really writing quite a lot, I did start thinking about it as a future. I probably wasn't ready to retire age 33. I could have done another couple of years, but I was offered a really great job in the media and thought, well, if I leave it too long, someone else is going to take that job. And I'm not getting any fitter or faster. If anything, I'm getting slower. So it probably was a good time to move on. I think it's not as easy to change career sort of in your late 30s or early 40s, but in your early 30s or mid 30s, it probably is easier. So, well, I've had longer now in the media than I had as a professional cricketer. So it was a good thing to do. I think I had another couple of years that I could have played, but you'd rather leaving them wanting more than being hanging around and, sort of people kind of really thinking they'd like to get rid of you.
Yeah, was it the Cricketer Diary at the Independent? Wasn't that the column? You've also written, was it 9 books currently? Am I correct in saying as well so far?
I think it's actually 10.
10.
One
Wow.
of them, well, one of them isn't under my name. I did a diary with Andrew Strauss when England won the Ashes in 2010-11. So you could say 9 under my name and 1 that's a sort of ghost-written book.
And then the analyst position, Channel 4, I know we mentioned at the top, cricket currently back on terrestrial TV. That famous 99 to 2005 period, how did the analyst position come about? Was it always seemed from the outside that you were actually the main man that kind of was almost ahead of the times as such in terms of the in-depth analysis that that was involved, that was being shown? Can you remember how it all went back then?
Well, I can tell you exactly what happened. In the mid-90s, I was working for the BBC on their test match coverage, and I didn't really have a lot to do because I was basically a reporter. I wasn't a commentator much. So most of the day of a test match, I'd be standing around with nothing much to do until the post-match interviews or whatever, which I did. So I was trying to find ways of killing time and where to spend the day. Didn't really have a seat in the commentary box. So I spent a lot of time with the producers, with the VT, the videotape operators, in a couple of trucks out the back. And I found that environment really interesting because I could see how they were doing replays and how they were doing graphics and how the whole system worked. And it gave me ideas. I could see stuff, for instance, that wasn't going to air. Cameras that were shooting, live action, but that particular camera wasn't cut to the action, and I could see them picking up stuff that wasn't being seen. So I started coming up with ideas for features and offering them to the BBC, and the BBC saying, well, we haven't really got space for it. People just want to watch the live action. So then when Channel 4 won the rights in 99, I went straight to them and said, I think there's a massive opportunity here to demystify the game, use lots of different angles and graphics and other techniques to explore the kind of great variety of the game. And they thought, well, this is a great idea. So why don't we try putting you in a truck and you can work with all the operators, the camera angles and the replay operators, and see what you come up with. And basically that's how it started. And then Hawkeye, the guy who invented Hawkeye, Paul Hawkins, he saw our coverage and he saw that we were going into the game in more depth. And he thought, I think I can add to this. I can create some virtual reality, which, even takes the analysis of the game on a bit further. So it was a sort of meeting of various minds, really, that made that analyst position work. And yeah, I think it was groundbreaking, and other sports copied it, and now it's part of the furniture. But then it was quite new.
What do you think is going to be the next great innovation in terms of cricket broadcasting that you kind of see and envisage?
That's a really good question. Well, what I'd like to do is bring home to the viewer how exciting and dangerous it is to face these top class bowlers. And yes, fast bowlers being one, but maybe even spinners as well, how difficult it is. Because I don't think the TV pictures have ever really sold that. You know, it all looks a little bit too easy in a way. So what I've been looking into and haven't got very far with, to be honest, is virtual reality and a sort of headset type experience where you can actually face these balls for real, for virtually real anyway. So you wear the headset, you have a bat, you feel that you're in a real environment, there's a crowd noise in your ear, you can see the stands around your vision, and then you face up to Jofra Archer, an avatar of Jofra Archer running into bowl, and the ball comes down and you have to play it, and it hits the bat, or misses the bat, and the fielders run after it, and you get a certain amount of runs, or you get bowled, or whatever. So I would like to try and bring that experience to the viewer, somehow getting them closer to what it's really like to face test bowlers.
No, that would be amazing. You're also currently the editor of The Cricketer. For any youngster looking at this, perhaps that wants to get into sports and specifically cricket journalism, any tips you can give for them?
Just to say, actually, it's interestingly, it's the 100th anniversary of The Cricketer in a month's time. So we're bringing out a special commemorative issue which celebrates 100 years of the magazine. So it's had an amazing ride, and it's a privilege to work on it and be the editor of it. And we keep trying to find new ways, new stories, new features, new personalities to focus on, new techniques, etc. And it's a really exciting product to work on because there's a very good website to do with it as well. As far as future of journalism, I mean, what you're looking for is expert knowledge and passion, I think. So if you can show as a young writer or a broadcaster that a particular knowledge of, I would say, an individual player or a particular part of the game that fascinates you, and you can convey that passion by firstly knowing about it and having something different to say about it, and then presenting that in an attractive way, either by writing it well or by obviously broadcasting it. I think that is a selling point. So your USP as a young broadcaster or writer is a really intimate knowledge of something and a passion, you know. And there's so much information, data, you know, background info now about players, and actually, you know, they're reasonably accessible cricketers as well. I mean, I run this podcast series. We get players on it all the time who love telling their stories. I mean, only the other day we had Stephen Finn on, for instance, who was talking about his anxieties as a player in the England side and how he dealt with that. They all have really good stories to tell. So, yeah, it's about identifying players or aspects of the game that really interest you and finding something new to say about them.
Yeah, I was going to mention, see, you've got a couple of podcasts, haven't you? One with Simon Mann and one you're talking about with Stephen Finn. Was it the Virtual Cricket Club as well, which is a small fee, but it goes to charity? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's called somebody came up with the idea. I don't know how he came up with this plan, but it's actually called World's Best Cricket Club, worldsbestcricketclub.com. And basically, I thought in about September, I thought, well, you know, there's a lot of club cricketers that are going to be missing going for nets or meeting up at the club on a Friday night for a beer or a chat or whatever. There's a lot of players knocking around with nothing to do. Why don't I create this virtual cricket club where I interview a player each week and we do a little quiz with them as well. And we try and get as many club members or club supporters or county supporters as possible to join. And they give a little bit of money to the Professional Cricketers Trust, which is a charity that supports cricketers who need help. So it seemed to be a win-win situation because it would give club members who had nothing to do and no kind of cricket chat to enjoy, something to look forward to each week, and it would give the players a platform to chat about their lives, and it was raising money, a bit of money for charity. So we started that in October, and we've been delighted actually at the number of players, England players we've had on it, and their efforts have been brilliant. Last week we actually had Ian Botham on, and he did a wine tasting, a virtual wine tasting. So it's been a really good thing to do, and the more members we can get for that, the better, because everybody enjoys it and it's giving more money to the charity.
Yeah, but I'll definitely put the links in the description below of this video, so whoever's watching this, please do check it out. But Simon, perfect. Thank you very much for your time today. Fantastic talking through your career, and all the best for the months and years ahead. So thank you.
Well, Neil, thanks very much, and same to you as well, and well done for your enterprise here. It's a good thing to do.
Perfect. So Neel Khagram, Cricket Life Stories, Simon Hughes. Thank you.